This is the Shared Spaces podcast, a place where we learn to reconnect with a world where wildlife and humans share the same spaces we all call home, through sharing the voices of those who dedicate themselves to seek out how. My name is Isabella Phillips, a certified wildlife conservation technician, and I'll be your guide through this series as we discuss the wildlife conflicts faced each and every day within our rapidly changing world. An ecosystem is the area where the interactions that all life forms have with their environment takes place. And these specifically unique interactions are what keep everything that we know and love about our natural world in perfect balance. Forests are a type of ecosystem that create a foundation for the diverse web of life that includes plants, animals, and everything else in the food chain. Among these is the humble bear, some species being native to British Columbia and one of the most widely distributed mammals in the province. Bears are a part of the Ursidae family, which within it encompasses 8 species of bears: the American black bear, the Asian black bear, the brown bear, the polar bear, the sloth bear, the sun bear, the giant panda, and the spectacled bear. To aid in better understanding this species and the conflicts that they face, 2 local advocates have been brought in to share their experiences and knowledge throughout this episode.
My name is Katie Graves. I live in Nelson, British Columbia. I'm a founder of the Ursa Project, which was started in 2022 after they killed 17 bears in town. My co-director and I met on a picnic bench on the rail trail and said, "This isn't right. Somebody should do something about this. Who do we call?" And there was no one to call. So we thought, what if we did something?
So my name is Joanne Siderius, and I am a wildlife biologist, and I have worked in the past on human-bear conflict with groups such as Bear Aware, which eventually morphed into Wild Safe BC. I worked with them for about 16 years, and I worked on bear hazard assessments for the regional district of the Central Kokanee and Trail, Nelson, Castlegar, areas like that, about 10 years ago now, I guess. And I'm currently working on outdoor education.
What was once reported by settlers to have been a vibrant and diverse environment for wildlife with an unbelievable abundance of black bears, Prince Edward Island provides a glimpse into a world without bears, a concept currently foreign to the people of Nelson, BC. Considering the small size of PEI and the large home range requirements of bears, once settlers brought free-roaming livestock and began the mass destruction of forests and wildlife corridors, black bears had nowhere else to go and were subsequently made public enemy number 1. In the 1790s, a 15-shilling bounty was rewarded for every black bear killed, resulting in the removal of every single bear on the island, as it remains today. The last bear was later destroyed in 1927 in Surrey, PEI. Bears are not only important in the cultural history of the indigenous Ktunaxa people of the Kootenays, but their teachings spread across the country to the Mi'kmaq people of Prince Edward Island. Along with their cultural significance and the life lessons they teach us, they also play a crucial part in our ecosystems, just like the one in rural Nelson, BC.
In some ecosystems, they are the keystone species, which is the species that every other element of the ecosystem relies on. Here in the Kootenays, it's the Kokanee salmon, because everything feeds on them, and they fertilize the entire watershed ecosystem. Well, watershed too, probably. And bears fit into that system because they are I guess if you want to look at it as a pyramid, they're one of the top apex predators in the system, and so they're one of the animals that eats the fish, drags the fish into the bush, the fish decays, and they're one of the animals that feeds on everything, and yeah, they're a top-level predator.
With fruits and berries as their staple food, they're able to disperse their seeds in their feces. Believe it or not, they're able to disperse more than 200,000 seeds an hour per square kilometer. That's a whole lot of new growth. Along with the incredibly important job of being the delivery service of the forest, through feeding on fish and carcasses, they're also the forest cleanup crew, conveniently serving as the sort of fertilizer that Joanne had talked about. Due to being apex predators, despite their rather peaceful eating habits, if we didn't have bears in our ecosystem, prey animal populations would easily reach what's called their carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is the maximum number of individuals that an area can support with its resources. Nature has its very own way of making sure that these numbers remain stable and healthy through natural predation such as bears, limited resources, and even disease, which is a completely natural form of abundance control. However, while nature has many ways of maintaining its balance, natural predation is seen as the least detrimental to the ecosystem. When resources become limited or disease runs rampant through a population, more than just that species becomes impacted. An overabundance of deer near or in a city, for example, can be detrimental to everyone, humans and animals alike, unbalancing the ecosystem. Car collisions, increased disease transmissions, nuisance on gardens, and destruction of woodland areas due to overeating have been shown to be the effects of rising deer populations. All in all, anything from the largest bear to the smallest squirrel can work together. Take the cones from the now endangered whitebark pine as proof. Their seeds provide a bear with an immense amount of calories, fats, and nutrients, which are all necessary to build enough fat reserves over the fall in preparation for their winter slumber. Squirrels will find these seeds, removing them from their cones, an act a bear cannot perform alone, then store them in their caches. The bear will then come along and, using their acute sense of smell and strong claws, dig up these caches to have a feast, though the squirrel might not be as happy as the bear. In the fall, bears need 15,000 to 20,000 calories a day to prepare for torpor, while in the spring and summer, it's 5,000 calories. To put it into perspective, in the fall, a bear will consume 5 times the amount that a professional bodybuilder does during their peak bulking season. Bears are omnivores, meaning they will eat both plants and animals. For example, in the wild, a black bear's diet consists mainly of plant matter, contrary to popular belief, while a smaller portion does consist of meat such as fish. They will eat anything from berries, roots, fish, insects, to animal remains, and anything else they may source out in the forest. When living in or around human settlements, however, their omnivorous diet causes them to be notorious for relying on human garbage and fruit trees, which are common attractants. This leads to potentially fatal consequences and altered behavior. This has really only grown more and more clear to see, as survival of the fittest causes bears to gradually shift into human-tolerant creatures and adapt their natural abilities to towns and cities in that name of survival.
They can eat over 250 different kinds of plants. That's one thing I say a lot of. And really, can we name 250 different kinds of plants? Bears eat a lot of plants, all the way from glacier lilies and spring beauties to ferns and cambium under tree bark and huckleberries, Saskatoon bear. You name it, I think bears will eat it. If it's ants and termites, and they'll dig up ground squirrels and marmots. They'll eat deer fawns, and some bears can learn that livestock is good to eat. That's up to us to teach them not, with electric fencing. And so bears are omnivores. They eat plants and animals. Boy, when the Kokanee salmon come into Kokanee Creek Provincial Park into the spawning channel, we will have bears there.
Bears will typically breed from May to early July. Many will actually exhibit delayed implantation, meaning that the fertilized egg doesn't establish itself in the uterus and begin developing until the fall months, once the mother finds a safe environment fit to raise her young. After a long summer of breeding and a fall of bulking, bears will enter a state of prolonged sleep, which many know as hibernation. But did you know, bears actually go into a state of torpor, which is a lighter version of hibernation. There aren't as many true hibernating animals as people think. Some of these are bats, frogs, and the classic groundhog, but animals such as bears, squirrels, and marten go into torpor. Hibernation, on the other hand, can be seen as a complete shutdown of the system, a coma-like induced state which takes up very little energy to survive, though many people have come to use these two terms interchangeably. Every second year during this state of torpor, a mother will awaken to deliver a litter of 1 to 3 cubs that are then born in January or February. Then she spends the next few years teaching her cubs to survive in their natural world, passing down information that has been built throughout generations and take advantage of their natural instincts.
So when black bears, and the bear that was killed on the highway was a black bear, and I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, a whole family was wiped out, a sow and her 2 cubs on that highway. So black bears are born in the den in January. Mating is in June, but it's delayed implantation. So when they come out of the den in April, they're born, they're about a pound of butter. And when they come out of the den, they're following their mother around and still nursing. And so if the sow is killed when the cubs are really young, they don't stand much of a chance of survival. They're still nursing. They're babies. And then towards maybe August or September, just before they're going into the den and maybe they've fattened up on salmon, they might be able to survive. And then if they remember where the den is, den up themselves. They would normally den up with their mother, come out with her again in April, And then in June, when it's mating season, often that's when big males chase them off, or the sows chase them off, or they leave on their own. So ideally, they're independent. This is black bears. They're independent of the sow into the second year coming out of the den. Grizzly bears stay in the den one more season with their mothers, so they would be 2.5. Maybe you'll make it if you find the den and you can come out and carry on feeding the way they learnt from their mother, then maybe they'll be okay.
Nelson, a small town nestled in the mountains of the Kootenays, home to over 1,000 different species of animals, insects, and plants, is surrounded by old-growth mixed forests, which makes up the southern tip of one of the last remaining inland temperate rainforests on the planet. An inland temperate rainforest is one that experiences all of the seasons and is not located near a coast. Black cottonwood and Douglas fir trees scatter the mountain range and provide a home for anything from ospreys to kokanee salmon. Those who live in Nelson are no strangers to the Ursidae family. Living amongst these creatures, though, has proven time and time again to be a difficult balance. The wonderful and quirky town of Nelson is known for its unique people, arts and crafts, heritage buildings, and ski hill, but among all, it's also known for the conflicts faced between humans and bears.
Bears are individuals just like people. One of the things that goes into making their behavior is their experience. So if a bear has experienced that people have food, and bears think an awful lot about food because they really do have a metabolism that needs them to get ready for hibernation, recover from hibernation, etc. So if they're used to getting garbage or compost, then they're going to come back for that meal. And so that changes their behavior because then they're more willing to come near where people live. So that's a food conditioned bear. And then an habituated bear as a bear that is willing to come near people.
Education is key for bears. As I said before, the misinformation, the fear factor that we should be afraid of them, that they are going to charge us and eat our children, and they have big scary teeth and they growl. Bears don't growl, by the way. They do have big scary teeth and they do have sharp claws and they are capable of great harm, but this is not their intent and it's not the way they live. It's not the way they behave. So once we understand that behavior, we don't have to be fearful of it. We just have to listen to what they're asking, which is, please give me space.
So I think a lot of people really don't know a lot about bears, and they may have gotten their perceptions about bears from popular media. So they may have seen ravaging grizzly bears roaring through a western, or they may have seen Gentle Ben, that TV show from years ago, or all kinds of perceptions that have come down to us through stories and things. So lots and lots of people don't really know bears. And the people who live in bear country, they may know bears as getting into the garbage, or, oh yeah, they'll run away if you clap your hands and you're hiking. And really, I think to understand bears, you have to sit and watch something like Staying Safe in Bear Country, read a few books by scientists, by people who've actually worked with bears, and educate yourself about how to avoid conflict with bears, because bears, they're omnivores really, but I think people think of them as carnivores, and they can be an animal that can harm us. So I think mostly people don't understand bears or know a lot about them. If you've startled a bear and the bear is clacking its teeth, that means the bear is sending out a signal saying, I'm agitated. And if a bear is huffing, that's another sign the bear is agitated. And if a bear stands up on its legs and is looking at you, that means the bear might not be sure what you are and is standing up to get a better smell, a better sight, maybe better hearing of you. I would call none of those aggressive, because that's implying you know what the bear is going to do. But it is indicated that the bear is agitated, and that's time for me, if that's happening, for me to back off. Watch the bear back off and saying, hey bear, hey bear. And another thing that a bear might do is look like this, not stare at you. That is a sign that the bear really is not into confrontation, that the bear might not back away. I don't know, does she have cubs? Is there no way for the bear to leave? Is the bear cornered? But if it's not staring you in the eye, that means they're not being confrontational. It gets complicated if a bear has cubs, and we all know that. So if we surprised a sow and she sent her cubs up the tree, you really need to just say, hey bear, and back off. There's something called a bluff charge, which bears can do. So again, the bear runs towards you, then stops. It's kind of a signal saying, I want you out of here. I mean, no, I'm not going to go any further than this unless you don't leave. So, and a bear that actually follows through on its charge, you've really startled it. She has cubs nearby, we're too close. That's when you need the bear spray. Some people prefer a gun, but bear spray is proven more effective because, well, with a gun you can miss. Really, you don't need to. If you have bear spray, everybody walks away.
I think one of the things that the Ursa Project really wanted to do was to teach people the truths about the bears and have them be self-motivated because they care. So some of the myths that we've been given our whole lives, we've been taught bears are scary, and in movies they growl. Cocaine bear. It's the media has pounded this into us our whole lives, and it's simply not true. I refer to black bears as the Labrador retrievers of the forest. They are really timid, gentle creatures that deserve to be respected. So trying to undo some of these misconceptions has really, we've seen a change just since 2022, so it's only really a 3-year period that people's attitudes have changed and people started caring. People started saying, well, what should I do if my neighbor has their garbage out? And I always say, if you see something, say something. It's okay to talk to your neighbor. Say, hey, I just cleaned up the bears where the bear tore apart your garbage on my lawn, packed it up for you. Can we have a talk about bears? This is how we do it here. We have a lot of new people coming to town, people from places that don't have bears. So we need to be responsible to educate our fellow community members so we can feel safe, the bears can feel safe, and then we can coexist, and it's absolutely possible.
A common thought when there's a problematic bear may be, why not just move it instead of destroying it? Wouldn't that be a safe and easy solution? Unfortunately, conservation officers must use lethal forces to remove bears that have been repeatedly attracted to towns due to their inability of being moved away from their home range, that large area that makes up where they perform their day-to-day activities, in this case overlapping the town of Nelson. In a study done by Parks Canada in conjunction with the government of British Columbia, it was discovered that even after moving the bears anywhere from 43 to 200 kilometers away from their original home ranges, 2 of the 9 bears returned, another 2 became problem bears in their new homes, and the rest roamed in unnatural and disoriented paths compared to their typical behavior. The bears in the study were found wandering in areas 3 times the size of their normal home ranges. In addition, 5 of the 9 bears died after relocation, 1 being killed by another bear who had already established a home range in that area, another by a hunter, the 3rd by a farmer protecting his livestock, and the 4th by some unknown cause. The 5th was destroyed eventually by enforcement officers. As young, bears are taught by their mothers for a year to hunt, move, and survive in their home range of birth, becoming closely accustomed to their environment and the struggles they must face. Because of this, bears demonstrate a behavior called natal philaptry, which is the act of either remaining or frequently returning to an area in which they were born. This is why relocation of most bears causes an intense amount of stress, confusion, and fatality when a bear is introduced into a new area with other bears, creating conflict and competition. According to the Ursa Project, 2022 saw Nelson's largest number of bear destruction by officers due to being unfit for relocation at 17. Evidence demonstrates that bears are not meant to be relocated. It is merely a bandage to the human-bear conflicts, which are truly just meant to support human needs, and not those of the bears we live alongside. Nuisance bears, especially black bears, are very rarely aggressive on their own, rather they are food-driven, most of their actions and aggressions towards humans stemming from a desire to acquire food that humans make far too accessible.
Overall, especially with black bears or with grizzly bears that are repeat offenders, for one thing, the bear comes back. And if it's learned to eat food where it was captured, then it might come back. And the second thing is, just imagine that you're dumped off in an area where you've never had to make a living before. Bears, it can be if it's June, for instance, mating season, and other male bears, boars, are aggressive. That's not good for young bears, for other boars. It's not a kind thing to do. The other thing is that you're mixing the genetics of a population when you move an animal from one region up to another region. So relocation ideally would be within that animal's home area, and that might mean it's going to come back to get the food, and bears often do. So those are the reasons that I've learned, and the exception being female grizzly bears that are first-time offenders. And the reason for that is because grizzly bears are a species of concern. So building that population up, losing a reproductive female, a young female, is probably going to harm that population. So there's a great deal of thought put into what to do with that bear. And usually, unless it's a second offender, now this may have changed since I was working, but they will aversive condition that bear on the site where it was captured, and then it could be just bean bags on the outside of a trap, and then the bear is released with shouting, etc., to make it realize this is a bad place.
As of late, an increase in available food sources caused by humans have caused bears to become more food conditioned and human habituated, leading to more human-wildlife conflicts and a misunderstanding between bears and humans. In the West Kokanee area, 33 bears were killed in 2024. Of those 33, 8 were destroyed in Nelson due to human-bear conflict. This is a prime example of what wildlife managers call a human-wildlife conflict, and tends to stem primarily from a lack of understanding on the instinct and behavior of a species when humans begin to feel interrupted by their existence in sharing the same space.
What Nelson can do is hold up our end of the bargain, really. Our end of the bargain is to secure our attractants, to be mindful that our garbage is indoors. If it's outdoors, it better be bear-proof, and it better be secured to something. Bears are experts at getting into anything, so we really have to do our part in terms of garbage. In the fall, it becomes a big fruit problem, and we need to manage our fruit. It doesn't mean cutting down all the fruit trees. What it means is not leaving ripe fruit on the ground, picking your trees. Last year we did a fruit tree initiative for people that didn't want their fruit trees anymore, and it was a big problem. It was a mess, or they were physically incapable of cleaning it up. And we had a $500 subsidy for people to have those trees removed and perhaps plant something that's not going to create fruit. Last year we also did a bear-proof garbage can, partnering with the city. We were able to get bulk and municipal discount to get them as a pre-order to people who wanted them. The issue is that it's really, waste management is a municipal responsibility, and the city of Nelson has not yet stepped up to that responsibility. So we have taken it onto ourselves to do many things like that. There's also bird feeders should not be up during bear season. You can have them up during the winter, but that's a very high calorie food. Bear resistant garbage cans are incredibly important. It's one of the best ways we can uphold our end of the deal. People make garbage. There's no getting around it. And how do we do it safely to keep them safe and to keep us safe? They will remember where they got into garbage and got a reward. So it is of the utmost importance that we have those for every resident. Some people can manage without them. Some people go to the dump and have very secure indoor storage for their garbage. But for a lot of people, there's a lot of suites and in-laws and in Nelson that people could really, really use those. It's frustrating with the city. We have met with the city, presented to the city, emailing them repeatedly. It's an expensive endeavor. The city has indicated that they want to become a bear smart community, and one of the edicts of becoming a bear smart community is to have the municipality providing a bear-proof garbage can for every resident. So we're looking forward to hopefully that happening sometime in the future. They're finally going to get bear-proof bins on Baker Street, because what we're effectively doing right now is drawing the bears into the downtown core, holding food in one hand and a gun in the other, and that's not right. In terms of garbage and ways of managing that, there are lots of tips and tricks. One great way is to freeze your smelly stuff until garbage day. It's the scent, it's the smell that the bears are drawn to, and they have an incredible sense of smell, better than a bloodhound. So if that's in the freezer, when it goes out on garbage day, it has a very short window to thaw before pickup, and you're decreasing the smells that are enticing the bears for household garbage. Another tip or trick is original formula pine sol, not lavender, not citrus. Those are actually attractants. But the original pine sol, you can put it in a spray bottle and spray the inside of your can. You could spray the outside of your can. You could spray your garbage shed if you have one. The other places that have been using this, it's been very successful. And the bears haven't figured out how to ignore it yet. When humans are fearful, they behave in not so predictable ways, and the same thing holds true for bears. We can develop a trust with them, which is not petting them, and it is not hand feeding them. It is absolute respectful distance. But last year we had two moms with their kids at the campground. Not a good place for the bears to be. People need to eat. People have food in their campers. Now they have a food cache at the campground where you're required to stash your food, which is good. But so we had a mom and a single cub and a mom with her two other little cubs. They were too close to the people, and there's children running around, and it's not a great mix. So that particular day, I carry an air horn in my car, and that particular day I went down and used my air horn, and it did get them to go up the hill. So where are you going to push them to is the question. But in that scenario, it was more of if the bears get too close to the people, they will be killed. So it sort of protected everybody that day. So I think it has its place. Should it be our way of being? I think learning to coexist is a much better option than having to be mean to an animal who's not being mean to you. What I wish for the city of Nelson is that we could come to an understanding that the bears have been here for 10,000 years. The city of Nelson has been a city for 128 years. So we need to remember that we are on their land, that they are the true locals.
In the wider rural area, people really do have to learn to keep attractants in, like compost and garbage, and maintain fruit trees, because that brings bears close to homes, and then bears are curious and they'll investigate further. I have neighbors that would rather shoot at a bear than clean up their garbage. And that's shoot, shovel, and shut up is an old rural habit. It's happening less and less, but it still happens. So my image of coexistence would be us not having so much garbage available, for one thing, and then if we do have some, that it's in bear-resistant cans, away from bears, and that we use all the fruit that we have and put electric fences up and use that fruit. And learn that living with bears means not feeding bears near our homes and allowing bears to move through without being alarmed at their very presence.
A huge thank you to all the friends, family, professors, advocates, and everybody all over the country who made this project possible and stand for this cause. This project truly could not have been done without you.